the average cost of a brand new SUV back in 1997 was right around $23,000. Fast forward to 2025 here, it's over doubled. It's now over $48,000. And I love just how nostalgic that LX 450 is. Right when you jump into that vehicle, you're immediately transported to the 90s. And I love that, right? It's just, you're brought back to a simpler time. And there's something liberating about that. And that might not be the best word, but that's kind of how it feels. Right when you jump into that vehicle, you feel like you want to race home, fire up the Super Nintendo, maybe watch Home Alone, maybe even fire up an Air Bud video a little later on. You're just immediately transported to a simpler time. I'll show you what the Escalade does best. Well, that one, see, we already have a failure. We have a first technical failure here. Look how dirty this thing is. Look at this. This is what it's like having kids. Well, guys, maybe a little bit of good news. I haven't had acne in several years, so maybe, just maybe, puberty is setting in. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. With SUVs dominating the US auto market, we have a slew of options to choose from. So why did I choose perhaps the two most opposite examples possible? I bought a 1997 Lexus LX 450 and a brand new 2026 Cadillac Escalade ESV Sport. In this video, I'll talk through why I bought each of them, the pros and cons to each of the platforms, how much I paid, and what I foresee for the future resale value of each one. I'll also include some pretty alarming comparisons between each of the two vehicles that are 28 years apart, how the prices have changed over the years, and what the averages were between the late 90s and 2025. So stick with me as we talk through it all. And to be frank with you guys, jumping into the LX 450 is a bit liberating after driving the Escalade here. The Escalade has a little camera up front that watches you, and it buzzes your chair, your seat in there. If you're looking away, if you're quote unquote distracted, it's just overdone, right? This one here, you can open up the doors with a swipe on the LCD screen in the center, the control module. It's just scary for what could potentially fail and go wrong with this vehicle. Obviously, there's a nice warranty applied to this, nice bumper to bumper warranty, powertrain warranty, everything that would cover any major failure, even with the electronics for the longest time. And you guys know me, let's face it, I don't normally keep a vehicle for all that long, but the LX 450, I have so much more peace of mind in that vehicle. Now, unlike the 80 series, getting into the Escalade is much more daunting. You have this giant wraparound LCD screen, has a split right there between your passenger side screen, and then of course, integrated Apple CarPlay here in the center, and then a fully adjustable, as you'd imagine, digital gauge display. You can go through maps, a front end camera, a number of things. I'm not going to walk you through the whole vehicle, of course. That could take 30 minutes in and of itself, but really just wanted to show you kind of what it's like behind the wheel of the Escalade. It is extremely comfortable, as you'd imagine. You know, the suspension, air ride suspension, just absorbs absolutely everything. There's no complaints when it comes to the actual ride and feel of it. It does have, like I mentioned, the 6.2 liter V8 in this. I'm told anyway, we'll see if time will prove this, but I'm told that GM has figured out the lifter issues with the 6.2 liter V8, so, well, the V8s in general, especially the 6.2, that's what they're saying. They're saying they've ironed it out, especially for the 26 models. It is no longer a concern. So we'll see. When you just kind of look around and feel around the vehicle here, you just got displays, digital LCD screens absolutely everywhere for your climate controls, your seat controls. You can manually open the doors from this thing, from the center control module. It is absolutely overkill in every single way. I won't beat around the bush here, guys. It is overcooked. And really what it boils down to for me, I know it's kind of silly, but if you're to go buy any full-size SUV today, you're going to spend into the $70,000 range, right? If you're buying brand new, anyway. You can, of course, buy a used one. We've done that a few times. But at this point, we were going to buy new, and we're really aiming at a Suburban first. We were going to go get a Suburban RST with a 6.2 liter V8. I'm a fan of this powertrain. I was going to get that. And you start looking at the price tags of them. If you're going to get a high-spec, high-trimmed example, like a High Country, you're easily in the mid-$90,000 range. I think 97 is what we're quoted at. To be fair, though, with Chevy and GMC, if you were to go get a Yukon or a Yukon XL, you're much more likely to get a substantial discount on those vehicles. But to me, as someone who really kind of concerns himself with resale values and residual values, that's kind of a detriment. And GM products generally don't do well, A, for the reliability long term, unfortunately, right? Let's call it how it is. And B, the fact that there is so many incentives that are constantly offered by General Motors, big deals, incentivized interest rates, blah, 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 and that affects the resale values. And a lot of people don't think about that. It has second and third order effects that trickle down if there's a big discount on a vehicle. And well, the Yukons and Suburbans in particular, you can get several $1,000s off, sometimes $10,000, $12,000 off without trying that hard. That's not the case with Escalades. Escalades, at least right now, especially with the new generation here, you are not going to get a substantial discount on it. You know, this here, thankfully, we do have family members who have worked for General Motors out in Michigan their entire lives, and thankfully, you know, they're kind enough to offer us up their friends and family GM discount code, fortunately. So we're very grateful for that, and that is the only way to get a notable discount on the Escalade here. And that's what we did. So we were able to get about $12,000 off, $11,000 some change. I think it was $11,900 off this Escalade. It's still wildly expensive and arguably wildly overpriced, but when you compare it to the Expeditions of the world that are absolutely everywhere, super common, right? They plague the streets everywhere you go. Expeditions, Suburbans, Yukons, you name it, they're just everywhere. Whereas the Escalade here, especially with the new redesign, it just feels more special. And if there's ever any interest in me doing a more in-depth review of this, I'm happy to do that. Happy to provide that for you guys, you know, kind of walk you through the entire system here and what the cool features are. I mean, there's an abundance of features in this that really make it quite special. But it is alarming, right? When there's so much technology involved in a vehicle, what does that look like in 10 years, right? What does this look like? When there's a bunch of technology in any vehicle, it doesn't age well, generally speaking. Go look at any, you know, maybe 2013, 2014 Mercedes-Benz. Back in 2013, 2014, the Mercedes-Benz at that time were cutting edge, right? They had the best technology possible, and now look at them. They dated so quick. They aged very, very poorly. Whereas you look at a Toyota, right? Maybe a 2013 Toyota 4Runner or a Toyota Land Cruiser, the simplicity of those vehicles ages extremely well. And that's why resale values combined with their great reliability, of course, is why they fetch huge residuals. I'll show you what the Escalade does best.
Hi, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning. Good, and you?
Good. Can I get a good name for your home?
I'm going through a phase, okay? Jeez. The electric doors in this are just super trippy. There's a little button on the inside of the handle. When you just pull it, it kind of senses how hard you're pulling on that button and pulling on the door, and it will open the door accordingly. We have it in quote-unquote manual mode too at the moment. You can just set it to where you pop that button and it'll open up to a set amount, which is scary because you don't know if it's going to bump into something. They say there's nice sensors in it and it'll make sure that that will not happen, but still, like, there's a mental block in doing that, of course. But look at this, get a load of this. Huge LCD screen, just wrap around curved screen. This is, it's like, this is where we've gotten to. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost nonsense at this point. It's almost silly to say it. Well, there you have it right here. Let me just pop open a door over there, if it wants to. Well, that one, see, we already have a failure. We have first technical failure here. So let's see if it, hold on, let me try again. Oh, there you go. There you go. Isn't that weird? Like, I have a hard time getting used to that. And, well, same goes for closing. Check it out. Just do a swipe the other way, and it'll bring the door in. What the heck, right? That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready. But the goodness too, and of course, if you want to shut it, you can just push it, and it will do a soft close and then come together slowly there. Power running boards, of course. There's a lot of niceties and creature comforts in this, more than what we need if we're being honest with each other, but it really just came down to the pricing. I love the fact that it still has a V8 in it. You guys know I geek out about V8s. I appreciate that stuff. And with each passing year, seemingly, with the exception of having the Trump administration in office, we just continuously get further and further away from actually offering engines like that. So I appreciate V8s. especially compared to like the EcoBoost that you get within the Expedition. They're snappy, they're quick, and they feel lightweight, light on their feet, but this here just feels right in this size of an SUV. You guys tell me if you agree. Let me show you out back. And forgive me, look how dirty this thing is. Look at this. This is what it's like having kids, okay? Especially with this color. Aegean stone is what they call it, or Aegean stone. I think it's Aegean. You can see all the fingerprints. Look how dirty the wheels are. So maybe we're not the most ideal Escalade or Cadillac owners, but with that GM discount and the fact that Escalades are not normally discounted at all, really was a deciding factor for us. We still spent more than what we would have on the Suburban, a high spec example of a high country, but this here, when it comes to resale value, will do better for at least the near term. In the next couple of years, this will do better than any Suburban, any Expedition, any Yukon. Plenty of space out back. You get an indicator of what we normally put back here. A bunch of hockey bags, and it fits perfectly. I actually don't know how people do it without the ESV version. This is ESV Sport, the longer back end, a lot more space beyond that third row comparatively to the standard model, the non-ESV. I don't know how people do it with those models, like the non-max version of the Expedition, the Tahoe. I really don't know how they do it if they have a bunch of kids. Obviously, you can hit that button there. I don't know if you saw it either. You actually hit the emblem to open it. So kind of swanky. I love this color, especially when it's clean. Right now, it looks pretty awful with how dirty it is. I think we're rallying this thing. So it definitely does not hide dirt too well. And if you got smudges and fingerprints on it, it just collects the dirt on that, unfortunately. But let me know what you think of the front end. I actually do prefer the 2023, well, the 21 to 2024 bigger headlights. This looks kind of like the Temu, the Chinese version of it, perhaps. But obviously the upgrades and the additions in the interior make up for the difference between the two models. So let me know what you think of that, though. It definitely turns heads, for sure. People probably just think we're douches at this point, uppity, but it is, I don't know, at the end of the day, guys, it's tongue-in-cheek, of course. I'm kind of poking at myself a little bit, but I do love the vehicle. It's fun, and at the end of the day, it's a very safe vehicle for my family. It carries the 5 most precious cargo that we have, all of our kiddos. So to me, that's worth spending an additional penny. So obviously, guys, I poke fun at it. I poke fun at the bouginess of this vehicle, but I do firmly believe the next 2 years, the values of this are actually much better comparatively to any Suburban. Suburbans just plummet, Tahoes plummet. And that's largely thanks to the fact that GM will offer big discounts and incentivized interest rates. They slash prices on the Tahoes, the Suburbans, the Expeditions. They get big discounts, whereas Escalades, as of the last few years, until they were pivoting away from the 24 and the new facelifted version of the 25, that's when we saw a little bit of discounts on the 24s, only then. But realistically, most dealerships, they don't really cut prices on the Escalade so much, nor do they offer incentivized interest rates. So thankfully, I was able to get a very good interest rate on this. And like I said, get about $12,000 off MSRP. So to me, that was worth it, especially if we do only end up keeping it a couple of years. We know that we're not going to take as big of a bath on it comparatively to Suburban or an Expedition or a Yukon. And one thing I'll plug in this video is a lot of you guys will reach out to me and say, hey, why didn't you just go get another 200 series? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, if you have a family the size of mine, although that 200 series, the Heritage Edition, the 2021 or 2020 Land Cruiser has a third row, it's not ideal. It's not the same as a full-size, big body SUV like this. And only if you have a family will you understand that difference. If you don't, you're like, well, you got enough seats, you can make it work. Maybe we could, I'm sure, but it's very tight and very snug, and there's very minimal room beyond that third row. And if you're like me and you have a bunch of young kiddos who do a bunch of sports, you need to have a larger SUV with a larger cargo space beyond that third row. So although I love the 200 series, I might have one at another point sometime down the road. I just feel like it's not ideal for a large family. In addition to that, I do feel as though the price tags of them have gotten a little bit absurd, right? I mean, there's a couple companies in particular that have monopolized the market in 200 series, right? And you know who I'm talking about if you follow the market at all. they've been priced far too high. It's a great vehicle for about $80,000, maybe $70,000 to $80,000. They're a wonderful vehicle with low miles on it. But unfortunately, if you're going to get one with low miles, you're teetering towards six figures for it. And I cannot imagine spending $100,000 plus on a now 4-year-old Toyota Land Cruiser, right? They're nice, they're brutes, they'll last forever, but it's not money well spent, in my opinion, if you're spending that much for it. It's a wonderful vehicle at $80,000 though. Real quickly show you the second and third row for fun. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, guys, okay? So we have a ton of space right here in the second row, captain's chairs here. We have some nice weather tech mats that I threw in here for fun to kind of help protect the leather a little bit underneath. Then here's the third row. You know, plenty of space out back for the entire gang. You know, even with car seats out back, we can make it work. So this is very much ideal. A lot of head space popped up out back, and like I just showed you, a ton of space beyond that third row. So this right here is a very comfortable family hauler for long trips. Nobody has to crawl over seats, which you would in the 200 series if you're going to try to make that size SUV work anyway. So this is an idea of it. Sunroof, that panel roof. This right here makes it all worth it. And I love just how nostalgic that LX 450 is. Right when you jump into that vehicle, you're immediately transported to the 90s. And I love that, right? It's just, you're brought back to a simpler time. And there's something liberating about that. That might not be the best word, but that's kind of how it feels. Right when you jump into that vehicle, you feel like you want to race home, fire up the Super Nintendo, maybe watch Home Alone, maybe even fire up an Air Bud video a little later on. You're just immediately transported to a simpler time. But I would be remiss if I said that LX had enough grunt to give you any level of confidence. That inline six, although extremely robust and extremely durable, and proven at this point to go dang near 500,000 miles with minimal headache, that vehicle there, I don't know, has no grunt to it. Getting to 0 to 60 miles per hour takes about 60 seconds, it feels like. And when you're getting onto a freeway, especially in a busy freeway, a congested one, you want to have that level of confidence that you can put the pedal to the metal and giddy up and go and get out of a sticky situation. And that does not afford you that type of peace of mind. Will it always start for you in any kind of weather and always run for you? Absolutely. That peace of mind will always be there. But again, when you're transporting, for us anyway, multiple kiddos in that vehicle, you're weighing it down even more, making it even slower. You do want to know that you can get out of a pickle if you find yourself in one. And with the 6.2 liter V8, you have just enough to afford you that peace of mind, right? It's not a lot, but 450 horsepower and 460 foot-pounds of torque. So definitely plenty, more than what you would ever need in most situations anyway. That feels right. Not to mention the power delivery in this. It almost feels kind of like a slingshot to me to some degree. I love the feeling of this. That raw, visceral power of a V8 just feels right in a full-size SUV. Now, there's no denying that the Escalade is a very sleek vehicle. It turns heads, and it truly does. I can tell you honestly. I think it might be a lot of the color too, right? You see a lot of Escalades on the road. They're generally white or black, you know, even with some reds sprinkled in. But this Aegean stone, this neutral gray green color here, looks incredible and is new for a lot of people to be seeing, especially on this platform. So it does turn heads, and it is a very sleek vehicle. One thing with the LX though is just how iconic that profile is. I truly mean it when I say that the 80 series feels the most iconic when it comes to that Land Cruiser nameplate. I mean, just look at the side profile of that LX 450 and it just screams Land Cruiser, right? Like that there is such a timeless design, in my opinion. Whereas this right here will probably age out. And like I said, the technology will likely age out and it'll become very dated very quickly. Whereas that LX 450, I would wager it will be running longer than this thing here. One thing I'll point out with the Escalade is I love the long tail lights out back. I think that looks pretty sweet, especially at nighttime when it's all lit up. That looks freaking incredible, especially with them being blacked out here. They're blacked out on the Sport model. Obviously, we have that blacked out front grille, blacked out accents throughout it. This does look pretty sleek. You guys tell me, what do you think? Especially when you compare it to like a Yukon or a Suburban. They just have this kind of truncated taillight from here downward, right? A more standard looking one. This here feels special. This here I don't know, makes it worth the $10,000 more when you start adding all these additional goodies that make it unique. Let me do a quick comparison between the vehicles. Although they're very, very different vehicles here in 2025, back in 1997, that LX 450 was a very premium vehicle, premium SUV. That price tag back in 1997 on that LX, about $49,000. That is equivalent to the buying power of about $99,000 here in 2025. So that is a $100,000 vehicle. If it would be brand new today, that'd be what I'd be paying for that LX 450. And compared to what the brand new version of the LX costs today, it's not far off. The LX 600, the Lexus LX 600 in 2025 has a starting price point around $114,000, with the LX 700H, the Overtrail edition, costing about $125,000. So inflation obviously is playing a huge role in the price tags as we move forward through the years. But if we're comparing apples to apples, back in 1997, that LX 450 was dang near on par with the pricing of this brand new Escalade here in front of me. So $117,000 is the MSRP of this ESV Sport that we have here as spec'd, okay? Like I said, we got about $12,000 off, so we're about $105,000 on the vehicle. Then you start tacking on taxes and registration, blah, blah, blah. This quickly becomes a $111,000 vehicle. Does beg the question, what will this 2025 Cadillac Escalade look like in 28 years? That's how old that Lexus is right now. And well, it's still thumping, it's still running, and it still looks good overall, right? This right here, I would wager, is probably not even going to be on the road in 28 years, let alone if it is, all that technology in there, there's gonna be bugs with it, it's gonna be dysfunctional totally within the inside of this vehicle. This would be electrical nightmare in 28 years, I would argue. You know, the rate that technology increases and advances is so fast, this right here is about to become antiquated very quickly. And just for context, the average cost of a brand new SUV back in 1997 was right around $23,000. Fast forward to 2025 here, it's over doubled. It's now over $48,000. The average cost of an SUV in 2025 does vary by its size, with the subcompact SUV averaging about $29,300, a compact SUV around $36,100, a mid-size SUV, kind of like a Ford Explorer, being around $47,400, and a full-size SUV, like the Escalade here, like the Expeditions, Yukons, the Suburbans, they are $74,600. So altogether, right around $48,000 combined is the national average right now. Just to paint a picture for you and go one step further, back in 1997, a Jeep Cherokee starting price point was about $15,300. A Honda CR-V, $19,400. Toyota 4Runner, $19,900. A Ford Expedition, $27,600. Oldsmobile Bravada being $30,300. Oh, how times have changed. You can't talk about SUVs without talking about how the popularity of the SUV has become this tidal wave, really throughout the last 2.5, 3 decades, right? Really since the late 90s, SUVs have taken over the US market, the automotive market, by storm. Nowadays, that's all you see. You walk in a dealership lot, you're gonna see subcompact SUVs, midsize, full size, that's all it is, seemingly. The sedan, which was extremely prevalent back in the 90s, is dead. Don't even get me started on trucks. Back in the 90s, there was a lot more utility to trucks. Nowadays, they cost you well into 6 figures for a very nice high-spec trimmed examples. They've become status symbols, let's face it. I'll wrap up the video there, guys. Let me know which set of keys you're taking. Are you gonna take the trusty inline 6 of the 80 series LX 450, or are you gonna lean toward the brand new Escalade? You know, obviously both of them have their own pros and cons, but when it comes to having a level of peace of mind, I think the Lexus is going to win. The Escalade here, when it comes to safety for my large family, that's gonna win in my book. So pros and cons to each. I love driving both of them. Let me know what your thoughts are on each of these platforms here. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you enjoy it whatsoever, a little bit more of a different style take, more review videos, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton and it doesn't go unnoticed. Till next time.